Name is Brian Fanzo, Steeler Nation, all right, hello from Illinois, better known as iSocial Fans, which is on the back of my hat right there. iSocial Fans on the Twitters. Thank you so much for jumping in today. Thank you guys for all joining. I am excited to kind of talk about employee advocacy. And if you guys don't know my background, actually employee advocacy is my background. I worked in the cybersecurity space and then went into more of a social business employee advocacy role in my business and my brand and what I was kind of working on. So thank you guys so much for sharing this with your followers. If you share this out on Twitter, I would appreciate it. That would be awesome. How's it going, Halsey from South Beach? If you could share it to Twitter, the hashtag that's in here is actually the Twitter chat that I'm going to be a guest on this afternoon at 3 p.m. Eastern time. So if you guys saw the very first picture that I showed live, I'm actually the guest on Hootsuite's chat called Hootchat today. And we're going to be talking about employee advocacy and really what employee advocacy is, how it's valuable, and really what it means for social media. And employee advocacy is close to my heart because I believe every brand, every company, no matter your size, if you're a small business or if you're a large business, you are a great business because you have great employees. And essentially, that is what makes you great. It is not the great product or services that you have. It is ultimately the great people that you have. And on social media, a thing that I love to remind brands is top of the morning, is that, nobody wakes up in the morning, especially in the social space, and says, what is my favorite brand tweeting? What did my favorite brand post on their Facebook page? What did my favorite brand try to sell me on? Or what white paper did they try to get me to buy or download or use? Nobody wakes up with that as their mindset. But they will wake up and say, hey, what did my favorite employee that works at that company do? Or, hey, now that I have a relationship with this person, for me, a lot of the brands that I built relationships with, I don't even think of the brand logo when I think of the brand. I actually think of the people. And isn't that ultimately the greatest goal? Because we relate with people, we buy from people that we like, and ultimately that's where we find the most value. So yes, thank you guys for sharing this. Thank you for your comments. So yeah, here I'll show you the graphic. So today at 3, let's look at it right there. So today at 3, I will be the guest there on Hootchat. So we will be on the Hootchat talking about empowering your employee advocates. Right now, let me know. Let me know of a 1 if the company you work at, no matter where the company you're at, has an employee advocacy or allows you to post on social and tell your brand story. So give me a 1 if your company supports, advocates, and trains for you to leverage the power of social media. I would love to hear from you if that is the case or not the case. Oh, there's a 1. We do have some 1s coming across. All right. So for me, brands today have no excuse because if they don't believe that their company is already social and that their employees and their customers and their prospects are not already on social, then they're crazy. How's it going, Julia? Cheers. And so for me, I think it comes down to how do you leverage that? How do you put it in their workflow? Because no, I don't think every employee just needs to sit around tweeting all day. That's not what I'm advocating for. But what I actually think is that a lot of companies and a lot of brands forget that if you focus and tell your employees how and why, and you give them the tools to actually tell the story, they can actually fit it in their workflow. And they are the single greatest advocates, the single greatest marketers, the single greatest salespeople, and ultimately even the single greatest recruiters that any brand could have. Because think about it, what is the number 1 way of recruiting for any company today? It's employee referrals. Well, how do those employee referrals happen? Because those employees build relationships with people they feel they want to work in their company. Well, what better way to do that than to leverage something like Twitter? Because you're able to build relationships around the world without borders, without limitations. And that to me is a powerful conversation. It is a powerful game changer. But if you're not leveraging that, if you're not embracing the power of social media and you're not giving them a tool to allow them to actually do that, to me, this comes down to something that you're missing. And too many times, too many brands, and I want to get this out there, is that it's not just, hey, tweet for me. If you have a bunch of employee accounts and all of your employee accounts are tweeting, that to me that does not count as employee advocacy. Employee advocacy is actually explaining how and why and giving your employees content, tools, and information to share, but ultimately allowing and empowering them to share their own voice in their own ways, in their own directions. So for some reason, real quick, let me, I'm gonna pull up something here on my phone. Let's see. So here is the broadcast. There we go. So I want to, for some reason, I'm not seeing the comments on my side, so I just wanted to put that out there real quick. So for me, I think, I would love to know from for this conversation I think it's really interesting that Hootsuite is kind of having an employee advocacy element. LinkedIn got into it. If you're familiar with Everyone's Social and Dynamic Signal and Social Chorus, those are all tools that take advantage and leverage employee advocacy. But I believe the big missing gap is actually what I talk about in my 3 T's. And I don't know if you guys have heard my 3 T's before, but I throw around my 3 T's all the time. And my 3 T's are pretty simple. It's trust, training, and tools. Trust, training, and tools. And trust, training, and tools, it's in that order. You first have to trust your employees that the reason you are a great company is because you have great employees. You have to trust them that they will tell your story, that they'll convey your message, that they'll be your greatest advocates. And if your employees aren't your greatest advocates, you have a much bigger problem than just employee advocacy. And I think that's a Jay Baer quote. It's really about, if your employees don't want to tell everybody why they like working there. And remember, I don't think every single employee must be a social employee. But I will say, every single employee plays a role in that storytelling and plays a role in conveying that message. And really, thank you guys so much, Terry. Thank you for sharing it to Twitter. I got my tweet deck up so I can see as everybody shares this to Twitter. I appreciate that. So today at 3 p.m., so in a little over an hour, I'll be jumping on Twitter using the hashtag Hootchat, which is Hootsuite's weekly chat. And I love some brands are doing a great job of creating some great Twitter chats. And really, a great Twitter chat has nothing to do with the brand. It has a whole lot to do with empowering their community to tell and share the conversation. And really, that's what Hootsuite has done an amazing job with. Buffer has done an amazing job with their chat. There's a ton of great chats. I'm very lucky to have a Twitter chat now for almost 2 years that we actually use Blab and Twitter called Social Business Hour. We've been doing it for almost 2 years. I absolutely love the chat community that we've been able to empower and leverage. But for me, the conversation on employee advocacy, I really don't think there is a better investment for a company. No matter your brand, if you have a 4-person startup, or you have a 4,000 person company, or maybe you work for a 400,000 person in Gorilla, ultimately, to get your word out, to convey your message, we all know of the power of word of mouth marketing. We know the power of content. We know the power of storytelling. There is nobody better to tell your story than the people you're already paying. They're already on your payroll. They already believe in your mission. They already are invested in your company. And ultimately, if your company is great and you have great trust in your employees, you focus on great training, you'll implement something great and you can leverage the tools to do it. Will I be at PRSA in Atlanta? No, I am not aware of what PRSA is, but I will not be in Atlanta for PRSA. I'm heading to Vegas this Saturday for IBM Insight, where I'll be live streaming and talking about social business, cloud computing, and big data and how that impacts businesses. And I did a cloud talk earlier today, where I focused on cloud technology, and that show is sponsored by SAP. And then in about an hour, I'll be jumping on the Hootsuite chat called Hootchat. And they've done a great job. I love Hootsuite. I tell you what, I think I love Hootsuite more for the culture, their employees, and their dedication to always innovate and be a really relatable company, more so than even their tool. Because if you look what Ryan Holmes is doing, I was tweeting out what Ryan Holmes was doing yesterday. Twitter got on Twitter Flight was the event going on yesterday, and Twitter was talking about all their developers and all their information. I firmly believe that Twitter would not be as successful as it is today for marketers if it wasn't for Hootsuite. I would actually say they would be 50% less successful if it wasn't for one tool. Because let's be real, managing your Twitter feed, engagement, conversation, sharing of content, collaboration with your other departments, sharing data, reporting, managing RSS feeds, all of that is a nightmare if you're trying to do it without tools. And everyone knows Hootsuite has been the biggest and the best tool from a management perspective of managing your feeds, managing your social listening, managing your collaboration, managing your clients, managing your employees. So for me, I'm a big fan of Hootsuite in the sense that I believe they're doing business right, they're doing culture right, and they also have a great tool that allows people to take advantage of something that I love, which I believe is the power of social media. So I'm going to talk about employee advocacy. It is something near and dear to my heart. I deployed Yammer for the Department of Defense. I deployed Jive for 2 startups that I had worked with. And really, we were focusing on collaboration and community. And that is a big piece for me. Facebook is shutting down newsfeed access for Hootsuiters. I think that's pathetic. Honestly, any of these tools and platforms, if they do not embrace an open API structure, they are going to severely be limited and hurt their user base. We are living in a world now where if they focus on sharing their data and allowing other tools to innovate and need and access to management, scale, engagement, that is the key. So, I mean, I say it to Periscope. Periscope announced yesterday at the Twitter flight event that they were all these great things people are doing even though they don't have access to our API. Well, why the heck do they not? Why do they not allowing API access to Hootsuite so that when you post something, maybe Hootsuite can build an algorithm out so where they could report on it, or they could allow you to set up some algorithms so that other accounts could see what was going on. I believe we are living in an open API culture, and if you're not willing to allow other tools and other brands to access that data, leverage that, and help out, I believe it hurts you, and I don't care how big of a Goliath Facebook is. Let's be real. Google Hangouts was owned by Google and was a powerful tool. I used them for 2 years monetizing them. They were horrible at relating with their community and their audience, and I believe they felt like they were too big to fail. I moved both of my sponsored Twitter chat shows from Google Hangouts to Blab because they cared about their community. So what I'm talking about here, for those of you that are just joining, is employee advocacy. I believe employee advocacy is essentially the most important and the best investment any brand can make when it comes to social media. Because you are a great brand because you have great employees. And why not empower them by trusting them, training them on how and why to share, and then giving them the tools so they can actually share what and at the right time at the right place. And so I'll be a guest on Hootchat, which is a Twitter chat run by Hootsuite. If you're on the social media game, you've definitely heard of Hootsuite. Hootsuite runs a Twitter chat every single Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm the guest this week. Our topic is empowering your employee advocates. It starts at 3 o'clock. It's as simple as logging onto your Hootsuite, logging on to Twitter, or maybe you're on TweetDeck, and putting in the hashtag Hootchat, and then just jumping in. A Twitter chat is essentially a hashtag that is the glue for a community conversation that happens during that 1 hour. So if you just put into your browser hashtag Hootchat, and then follow that hashtag as it's updated, as everybody's kind of adding to it over the next hour from 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern Time, you can join in the conversation and participate. Lots of legal constraints scare companies away from doing that. Legal constraints, let's be honest, you can't fix stupid. And if you're not empowering and trusting your employees and you're using the legal aspect as a crutch, I feel that your company will lose your employees. Because here's the thing. I worked for the Department of Defense. I had this highest civilian clearance you could get as a civilian. And I was able to implement employee advocacy, because if you're able to give swim lanes, you're able to tell people how and why, and you're able to implement training not as a one-time event, but training as a continual process for understanding how and why you share and also what you use to share. Legal constraints to me are an excuse that is no longer valid. If you cannot trust your employees to share your story because they're probably already doing it already, then your employees more than likely are going to be leaving you and you're going to be out of business. But then it becomes a job for these people. I didn't say it needs to be a job. Honestly, the implementation of employee advocacy for me, 30 minutes a day for your employees that have a social footprint, that if you empower them with the right tools, the right content, and you give them the right swim lanes, 30 minutes a day, if you integrate it into their workflow, into who they are, it can allow them to tell their story and make a huge difference. It doesn't need to be a full-time job. It doesn't need to be something they need to stare at their Twitter feed all day long. Ultimately, if you have great training and great tools, it's 30 minutes a day and you can empower and enable them. The incentive is pretty easy. Build out gamification, build out ways to reward. Here's the thing, here's the deal. Incentivize by celebrating. There is no better incentivization. To me, this is what I worked with my companies that I worked with, is having the CEO tweet at publicly or share out and say, hey, I love that, someone shared, this employee shared something, here's an attaboy. Because someone would much rather have a public compliment, public support from executives than they would a $50 gift card to Amex or a $50 gift card from Amazon. So to me, it's about celebrating those wins. The real value ultimately comes down to is if every employee understands that your personal brand is your resume, your first impression, and your handshake, every employee would want to embrace employee advocacy. Many people in the corporate world do their job and want to go home. Loyalty is not that high. You don't need to be loyal. You need to believe. Everybody has a story to tell. And I'm not telling you they have to tout their brand or tout their company or just be a talking head. What I am telling you is they have the ability to share their story. I want to know what you love to do. If you're an employee for AB company and you don't have loyalty to that company, but you have a passion for riding bikes and you want to tell that story and say, I love that my company gives me the freedom to go on 3-day bike rides or allows me to choose what days I ride the bike to work. That's a story. It doesn't mean you have to go in. I work with technology developers, like coding developers. I'm a computer science major. And I was able to talk to computer science majors and say, what is your story? What value do you have? And you know what they said? Well, I love working for this company because they stay the hell out of my way and they don't make me do stuff. Hey, why don't you tell that story with us? Why don't you put that together and let's tell that story on social media. Let's do an interview. Let's make it easy. And you know what's crazy? As soon as they get a whiff of that, and all of a sudden people are like, man, I had no idea that you love that element of it. All of a sudden people are engaging with them, because if you teach and educate your employees of the value of their personal brand, no matter their role. I worked in manufacturing for a data center company. People that were screwing in light bulbs inside of the data center had value in my employee advocacy program because they knew that if they needed a new job, if they needed a loan for a car, that their personal brand had value to them. Then I'll create my personal social media account that has nothing to do with my day job. I don't believe that you need to have a social account that is directly tied to your day job. But what I do believe, if you have great employees that really understand the value of your company, you can empower them with tools and allow them to share their story. Email isn't just for spam. Social isn't just for marketing. I couldn't agree more, Eric. And to me, ultimately, it's about telling your story. You know what Hootsuite did really great with live streaming is they did a thing called Follow the Sun, where they gave a different employee in a different building around the U.S., around the world, access to their Periscope account and showed behind the scenes. Walked over to their friends, showed the wall of fame, showed their coffee pot. And you know what they did? They didn't market, they didn't sell, they didn't even tell their employees what to say. But what they did do is they allowed us to get a view of what their culture, what their brand was, and who they were. And I can tell you, when a company tells you we have a great culture and our leadership trusts our employees, you know what everybody thinks? Yeah, right, everybody says that. You know what Hootsuite's able to do? Point to those videos. It's proven. Then how do you naturally create a link between my personal story and the fact I work for X? It's pretty simple. So for me, it comes down to giving you content and leveraging your story and linking your story to what is valuable for the brand. So if you work for a brand and what your story is and what you're sharing, for me as a brand, if I have employees that have a great personal life and they like to do things that have nothing to do with me as a brand, if I'm supporting and highlighting them, why would other people not want to work for a company that supports and encourages their employees to do great things? I'm friends with some people that work at Infusionsoft. And one of the people at Infusionsoft, the reason they love working at Infusionsoft, one of the reasons is Infusionsoft has something they call a dream board. And every year you get a week of paid time off to actually go accomplish one of your dreams. And Infusionsoft doesn't even have to, that dream can be creating a music record or writing a romance novel. But what they're doing is they're empowering their employees to tell their own individual stories and showing that Infusionsoft as a brand supports them, encourages them, cares about their quality of life. Guess what? Who wouldn't want to work for a company that cares about their quality of life, that has that value? Thoughts on a Twitter disclaimer? Yes. Here's the deal. Twitter disclaimer means nothing. Everybody who works for a company, when you're actually tweeting, sharing, and engaging, you are representing that brand and company in every way, shape, and form. Utilizing my company to benefit. Not sure that would work in corporate, my 2 cents. I've deployed it in a 25,000 person company called BAE Systems. They are a B2B Department of Defense company that is supporting the military. I helped do it in that space. I did it in a company called IO Data Centers, which is a cloud and data center space in the B2B world. Corporate, we went from 256 employees to 614 employees in 2 years. And it worked in both of those spaces. Every company, every employee has a story to tell. The issue becomes, what element do they play in the story? Maybe you don't want to be the person that's tweeting it out, but maybe you have something unique to share. Maybe if the content team comes down and interviews you and asks you questions, or maybe you set up a blog and say, hey, this is just some things that are going on with me. And then you as the brand push that out and let them know this was something created by one of my employees. Employee advocacy does not mean that you have to be a talking head for your company. What it does mean is you have the ability to tell your story. And honestly, when you're trained and you're trusted from your company, that's the key. Is it a story of comms channel? No, it has not. To me, the story can be about anything. Those that don't know what social media is, well, I also believe that if your brand or company is not on digital today and you are out of sight, out of mind, you will soon be out of business. And I don't care what your company is. I don't care what your space is. Because you know what? Whenever you're looking for a new financial firm, or you're looking for a new healthcare provider, or you're just for that, you're looking and researching in digital. You're doing your research. Even if your direct customer isn't today leveraging social media, ultimately, the people that influence them, the people they listen to, the content they consume is involved in social media. So I believe it does not matter. Monopolies are, well, hey, you know what? Here's the deal. I work with IBM very closely. I'm going to their event this weekend. They, to me, have implemented employee advocacy better than any company across the board. If Big Blue, who I would like to say is a giant elephant and takes forever to implement anything, if Big Blue can do it, I believe every company has no excuse. I don't care. I worked in the Department of Defense for 9 years. They were implementing it. They were allowing if you guys look up DISA, D-I-S-A, DISA is who I worked with and supported. DISA is actually embracing live streaming because guess what? Their senior level officials have a story to tell. And no, they're not giving classified information. No, they're not talking about a direct product. But you know what? They're conveying what value they provide. And that to me is key. Healthcare is another one. Healthcare, the amazing things that employee advocacy could happen in healthcare is it's crazy, because when you're looking at healthcare, so many people could leverage the value of social media to convey value. Because here's the thing, nobody trusts a brand in finance or in healthcare today. But guess what you're able to do? You know what you're able to do? If you're able to tell your story, build a relationship, and allow your audience to understand the people behind those brands, maybe they don't become new customers, but maybe they're less willing to complain. Maybe they're better understand what you're doing behind the scenes. To me, the true value of employee advocacy has nothing to do with marketing, has nothing to do about creating new employees or new customers or new prospects. It really comes down to, hey, how can I relate, listen, and amplify the amazing people that work for my company? And it comes down to the people. So unless you work for a company or believe there's an industry that doesn't have great people working in it, then that's the industry that might not embrace employee advocacy. But I can promise you, challenge me, give me a company, give me a brand that is willing and open to understand and listen to what I have to say when it comes down to trust, training, and tools. I'll find a business goal and I'll solve a customer problem leveraging employee advocacy. I guarantee it. Things don't move that fast. Companies still don't TV ads to cite predictions that they don't do it online. They're dead. Well, honestly, I mean, change today is not what it used to be. And just because a company didn't do it in the past and didn't change in the past doesn't mean they won't in the future. Because last time I checked, the taxi industry said they needed no digital footprint. They didn't care about online. The taxi industry is about to be extinct thanks to Uber. Last time I checked, Blockbuster thought that they were doing great things and doing exactly what Netflix was doing and sending DVDs via the mail, and all of a sudden Blockbuster is extinct because they had forgot to listen to their customer, their community, and embrace digital. So I believe I'm working with a brewery in Virginia that is embracing mobile and online and social media and employee advocacy, and it's a brewery that sells beer. That is completely offline experience. Why the hell would a brewery have to have employee advocacy? Why would they care about telling their story? I can give you about 100 reasons. And so for me, I'm not trying to convince you. I'm just telling you to listen. So if you don't believe me, you know what? I can firmly believe that lots of companies will plug along for a long time without embracing it. But you know what? Soon, those companies aren't going to have to worry about it. Because you know what? What employee wants to work for a company that doesn't believe that their greatest assets are their employees and they should highlight and amplify their employees? Sure as hell isn't millennials. And it soon is going to be a lot more people when they realize that their personal brand is their first impression, their digital footprint, and their initial handshake. So guys, I hope you want to listen to this more. Thank you guys for tuning in. Ultimately, for me, when it comes down to it, people buy from people they like. And you know what? People are going to stop buying from, the reason I buy Tom's shoes compared to buying other shoe brands has nothing to do with Tom's shoes being amazing at selling me stuff. Tom's shoes has a social good mission, and they're contributing, because I believe the future of business is community. The future of innovation is collaboration, and the future of marketing is social good. And I don't care what industry you're in, it's the truth. It might take a little while, but that is the value. And if you don't embrace your employees, you don't empower and trust them to tell your story, you're not going to have to worry about new prospects and new customers. Maybe you don't need those. You're going to need new employees, because your employees are going to find work other places where people trust, empower, and let them tell their story. So hopefully you guys join me on Hootchat. Hootchat starts in approximately 50 minutes. If you guys are tuning in, if you missed this and you're watching this on the replay, Hootchat, you can always follow the hashtag and scroll through. The graphic there for the end, so everybody can see that. Make sure you guys tune in to Hootchat. Make sure you check out. And like I said, I'm Brian Fanzo, better known as iSocial Fans. I ask you to challenge me. Bring on your questions. Bring on your comments. Tweet at me. Thank you guys for tuning in. Find a way to show you care. Go above and beyond to make a difference. People will remember you. And when it comes to time to buy from you or find value in you, you're the one that be the trusted resource. Cheers. See you on Hootchat.